See, all art forms, there are always attempts to develop all the art forms into what is known as a abstract form, especially in painting, dance, drama, music, performing arts. All of them try to lead the art form into what is known as abstraction. There are very, very wonderful examples for this in literature. There are good examples in the drama performances, very good examples in cinema. And cinema being a crucible in which you put all the forms of art, because cinema is a crucible of all the forms of art. And there is always a development of cinema art form from the classical to the abstract level of expression. The classical form of expression deals mostly with the physical, the structure. Classical forms always believe in a grammatic structure, a harmony and a balance. Once you get out of the structuring process, essential structuring process, which are very necessary for things that we see, and for things that we see, things that we hear, the structure is very important, what we call as a grammar. But from that point, there has been always an attempt by painters, writers, cinema artists to uplift this form from a physical to the metaphysical level. See, most of the people could not understand the earlier experience in this, because Maya Daren's work or the work of earlier work of some of the films of Buñuel involving these elements, or the later on the contributions of Ozu, the Japanese director, the work of Bresson, the Italian director, the French director, then so and so on till about the end of the 20th century. This concept of having an experience at the metaphysical level, it has motivated art forms to grow into that position. Though may not be understood by many people, but to understand this process, one must go into the experience level of how you appreciate an art form. Either it is a painting or a music or a cinema form. So to experience this, there are filmmakers who created certain different types of formulations. Not the grammatical method of showing things on the screen, but different methods of formulation. This formulation essentially, if you look at the work of Andy Warhol, what it did was, or has been always for a majority of people, is ridiculous. Because his films like Empire State Building, The Sleep, all those things people found it ridiculous, most of them. But those who are aware of the art forms, those who could imbibe the inner quality of an art form, originated or triggered by the external images, that will lift you into a position, a mental position, that is from the metaphysical, from the physical to the metaphysical level, for which the external elements will trigger and take your mind to a level of perceiving things through an inner eye. See, most of us look at things and see things using an external eye. Especially that is very much correlated with the art forms like painting or writing drama this is very much correlated because there is a strict structure, a classical structure, a balance and harmony. This will create an emotional aspect felt by the people because they see things, they experience things, the agony of others outside. That agony will trigger your inner process and come to what is Aristotle's catharsis. Empathy and catharsis. That is a process which is very much important for the classical structure, classical art forms. That means always you use an external eye. An external eye, a view that you see with your eye, that is what is happening outside. But the inner eye the perception of the things through inner eye. It can be developed only in the mind of very few people. Because it needs experience. It needs to understand what is at the connotative level. What we see outside, you filter it in your mind as at a level of connotation. Connotation means your mind is involved with your conscious, subconscious, unconscious level of perceptions. When you motivate these areas or activate them, they will help you in having a perception from inside your mind. That is the perception through inner eye. So when you achieve that perception through inner eye, one can distinguish between the physical and how the physical can lead to metaphysical level. That means, is it necessary to have a concrete thing in front of you? Are you believe in concreteness, or the concreteness will motivate your mind to travel into what is known as abstraction. For example, work of Jordan Belson. He is a painter who works on the concept of color without form, absolute abstraction. His cosmic films are very good examples of that experience. It's an experience that he felt is trying to transfer through the use of colors. The sleep and Antiviral's sleep and the Empire State Building. What happens? When this was screened for the first time, what happened in the mind of the audience? Majority of the people could not understand, they called it absurd. Many of the artists who came to the auditorium, they came into the auditorium, looked at the images for a few minutes. Then they started pounding on things, making a lot of noise, which was an expression of their experience, the inner experience. What happens is that when you put an image in front of a human mind, there's a point of maturity. That point of maturity is where, as a filmmaker, you cut the shot. But you do not cut it, but you extend. You go beyond the point of maturity. Then what happens? The person who is seeing the image will start withdrawing from the external view. He will withdraw into his mind. He will travel into his inner mind and try to find why this creative artist. So correlate with what happens, because the objective nature of an image gradually disappears. The physical level, it no more exists. You travel from the physical to the metaphysical. Because what happened in the films of Bresson, or what happens in the films of Ozu? See, Ozu, when he frames the shots, he does not go for varieties of shots. He may even choose the same camera position for various scenes, same type of shots given in a scene, because He is repeating the architectural nature of the image. He is repeating the lighting pattern of the image. He is repeating the compositional value of the image. And once you experience this in the first few shots, then when you again experience, you start withdrawing from the external values. The moment you start from withdrawing from the external values, at the connotation level, your mind, your subconscious will start working at the connotation level. So what you see with your naked eye, you start seeing this, a very different version of it through your inner eye. Because it's an experience that is being transmitted. From the source is an image created by a person. But that will trigger the manner in which you use the visual. It will trigger your imagination and will make you to come inside and use your internal eye to look at things. That is the position at which a physical to the metaphysical level of perception. So this is an area where many people do not understand it. And why Bresson is not a very popular filmmaker, or also is not a very popular filmmaker. The reason is because these elements, they cannot teach the audience. It is at an experience level. The audience in front of, looking at the film, the images come in front of them, they only read what is within the image. What is the image? They read. They read till a logical point of time. Once that logical point of time is left, they want variety. They want another thing. But you break that logical point of time, of shifting, and expose the same image for an extended period. That will, as I told you earlier, a triggering element for looking at things with an inner eye. And this is very, very important. If you look at drama writing, there are great dramatists, starting with Marlowe, starting with Shakespeare. From there, realism dramas, European dramas, alienation in German movements. All those things are historical aspect of writing a play or a imitation of a story to be performed on a stage. But the varieties happened from the very beginning of storytelling itself. So if you look at the work of Eugene O'Neill, the American playwright, you see a spectrum. A spectrum where at one end, a very, very popular play like Desire Under the Elms. This play, why it was very popular? Because it has all the elements of a classical structure. As Aristotle defined classical structure, a balance, harmony, emotion, everything, catharsis, all those things. So it is an experience, emotional experience given to the audience, very successful. And that play has been adapted into cinema, performed in various stages. But when you look at his work, from the very first play, look at the spectrum of the growth of an artist. You see, from this classical method, he travels into what is known as a inner perception of things at a metaphysical level. So when you look at the play like Emperor Jones or the Iceman Cometh, this will not become very popular on the stage, but this will become very attractive for people who know about the growth of an art form, the experience level of an art form at the metaphysical level. See the combination of action with the sound and other things, and they is not structured in the classical manner. And it creates a new type of experience. The work of Eugene Ionesco and Beckett, Beckett, both of them come into the category of an experience at the metaphysical level, not at the physical level. But there is a transition point in this work, a theatrical performance. There is a transition point. If you look at the works of R.R. Miller, where he uses the inner narrations, not soliloquies, but the inner dialogues, multiple levels of experience. See, there is a transition point from the classical to the, or physical to the metaphysical level. So there is always in the art forms, it grows continuously with a connecting hook. It is connected like chains the links in a chain. Like that it is connected. So these elements are hooked together, and to understand this connecting point, how they are connected, it is necessary to understand the growth of the art form from the physical to the metaphysical level. From realism, you created what is known as impressionism. What really happened was that realism achieved its highest form during Renaissance period. Through realism, romanticism, it achieved highest point of the visual quality of an image. Because people like Rembrandt, Da Vinci, Michelangelo, all of them made the visual part of the image very, very attractive. Because they sometimes even broke the concept of the perspective to some extent, because Rembrandt created a forced perspective through his chiaroscuro. So that attempt reached the highest point at the Renaissance period. But then afterwards, the creative artists, till that time paintings were appreciated, seen beautiful beauty of the paintings. People liked, they crowded to look at it. But then what happened was, next was Impressionism, created by or popularized by some of the painters, especially Vincent van Gogh, post-Impressionism, where what happened was that he was looking at objects not the way that we decorate an object by creating an image, but looking at the object, the effect of light on an object, and your perception of that image because of the effect of the light. Because the moment you move the source of light, the image you created by you will definitely change. So he looked at it from an inner eye when he was painting in the south of France in hot summer. He looked at the landscape, looked at the things around him, and perceived them through an inner eye. Therefore, the realism part is taken out extensively, and an interpreted method of creating an image because of an inner feeling of an artist, a visual artist. If you look at the paintings like the lotus eaters, the cross, number of his, see they depict a sort of the mental experience, of a painter. Before he died, what he created? He created the cross, the way in which he drew the disturbance in his mind. It was totally at experience level. He has seen his feelings in his mind. That feelings have been translated into strokes of paint. So that became a very, very important method of expression. But then not popular. Because none of his paintings were sold. While the other Renaissance period paintings were, of course, there are lots of people to buy them, store them, and promote them. But Vincent van Gogh was not promoted by anybody. He was promoted, his expenses was met by his only brother. Nobody was there to give him any money. But it was a change in the approach of looking at things and experiencing what you see outside. But this went much further forward, where in realism, you really depend on the method of creating perspective. But by the next change, that is surrealism, what happened? The perspective was denied. Because on a flat surface, you created distorted objects. There is no attempt to create a perspective. But on a flat surface, exaggerations, shaders, and the contours, all those things have changed. Because the most important element in realism, perspective, was pushed aside and came into surrealism and expressionism, and things are like that go on. Then came after that Cubism. What happened there? Again, denial of perspective. Instead, an object is recreated on a flat surface. The multiple viewpoints. And they initially used geometrical forms. And Cubism was created. So that means, see, you are not looking at an object as it is. You are looking at a interpreted form, interpreted by an artist, with a lot of elements, experience behind it. And that you are seeing. So to understand that, common man, it is difficult for him to understand. But for a highly enlightened mind, a person can appreciate and understand it, because it's from the physical to the metaphysical level. It is traveling in that sense. Of course, finally, you come across abstraction. But the most important thing what you have to say is that moving images are the best examples for creating transcendentalism in the mind of the people. Because there is movement, there is a sense of a flow, and there is, like our feelings, there is a movement in our feelings. This is correlated with the images that you create. May be very different from realism, but the way you create with a connotation, at a connotation level, which to some extent you can see in Satyr Ray's Kanchenjunga. When they walk in that Himalayan valleys, they talk, the background, the space, the whole thing behind creates a additional element of feeling. That is one of the places where you can trace in Indian cinema an element of transcendentalism. But the transcendental element becomes much more effective in the work of his contemporary, that is Rajkumar Ritik Khatak. Because he created not merely depending on what you see. He combined what you see and what you hear, not in a synchronous manner. He took an image and put at the sound of something else along with the image. And in combination, when you combine them in your mind, you get a tremendous sense of upliftment. a spiritual upliftment, a great feeling. That leads to transcendentalism. The work of, this is the only filmmaker I have seen in India where transcendentalism works very, very effectively. Take for example Malayalam cinema, G. Aravindan. Out of all the Malayalam cinema people, I see the elements of transcendentalism only in the work of G. Aravindan. Especially his film Kanchana Sita, where the figure of a important person, a legendary figure or spiritual figure, is translated into the movements of the trees, the space, the wind, the light. And that is a great experience. See, when you see a person straight with a certain embellishment of the body and head and things like that, your mind is constricted. But that when that is removed, when you look into a much larger space, a concept of a human being in nature, a concept of a human being in wind, a concept of a human being in the light, clouds, where it is the unlimited experience. When you have a physical object in front of you, your mind is limited. But you break that limitation. When that person is replaced by elements like this, that exist in space. So our transcendentalism or the attempt to understand or get into the feeling becomes much more effective at the metaphysical level. But this, many people who believe in what is known as melodrama, story structure, and things like that, they will not accept it, they will not understand it. They will even condemn it. Because they cannot understand. We cannot blame them also because their mind has not been refined enough to understand and capture the connotation values of these images. Ultimately, images will have to strike a chord in your mind. When that chord is stricken properly, you get uplifted. Like as I said you, the final sequence in Balthasar, or certain sequences in Ozu, or certain sequences in Italian filmmaker Fellini. Some of the sequences in Bergman's film, especially in his film Seventh Seal, and greatly in the film Dreams by Kurosawa. What an outstanding experience one gets. See, we are not putting an object in front of you in the shape of a concrete thing, no. You are, instead of that concrete thing, you are conveying a much higher, elevated experience to the spectator by you using images and sound and color and movement. That is why I said movement, the images with movement is the best method or best platform on which you can experience transcendentalism or the real performance. Or the real performance in front of you, or what has been photographed, recreated, that will be a very great experience. So the cinema, the way of cinema, also in one film of Aravindan, Pokuveil, again that element, the essential inner aspect of the film, you experience. See, you have to look at it with an inner eye. Kanchana Sita, you have to definitely look at it with an inner eye. Because I was there in the previous time for the film with the original writer. They all shouted at him after the film was made because They all wanted to see Sita in the concept, popular concept, fully draped in silk and gold. But instead of that, you are experiencing Sita. It's an experience. Like what I said to you, the final sequence in Balthasar. You experience the presence of the Christian sacrifice. The tremendous experience. But for that you are using some innocent sheep and a dying donkey. These are motivating elements, understood by very few. But when you understand it, you say that I experience it. It's a transcendental level of experience. Think about my own film. One film I made, especially on the experience level. That is yoga as an experience. Yoga, I did it in 1986, I think. At that time, the person was alive, B.K. Iyengar, the great famous Yogacharya, and he died only about 1 year back in India. When he was performing for the film, he was already around 75 to 80 years old. I did not want to make a documentary on the usual manner of commentary and things like that. I wanted to make a film by looking at the images you should experience. They experience the inner quality of yoga. So I never wrote a script. I had a good cameraman with me. We went to the location, 5 or 6 locations where he was training his students. I caught the images while he was doing it, but a great understanding of my cameraman and myself. We changed the method of creating images on the screen. We created a pattern, a moving pattern. That pattern, along with the scriptures that is being sung in the Sanskrit script, it created a tremendous effect in the mind of the audience. There is no spoken word. Nobody is just explaining what yoga is. But you experience it, and it became a very popular film. Children, many people. And a copy of the film was taken by many countries through their embassies. Because the language is the language of cinema. It is neither Hindi nor Sanskrit nor English. The cinema has got a language. The language is at various levels. It could be at the classical level or at a much higher level. That depends on the filmmaker who makes it. So that is a great experience. I used to read a lot of books while I joined as a student in cinema. Before that, I used to read Ionesco, Beckett, James Joyce, all these things. I had a liking towards what is known as what makes you think. That means from what you see to what makes you think. So the work of Eugene O'Neill or Ionesco or Beckett or James Joyce all became a part of my sensibility. Because earlier I used to like Shakespeare plays, because that had a classical structure, it was emotive. But then I started withdrawing from that, and not withdrawing, my choice. Choice became the different type of expression, a different type of experience. That experience is very important, and it is my only personal experience. I cannot transfer my experience to somebody else. And I enjoy that experience. This is, from my point of view, a great art form has got a responsibility to share the experience to each individual and becomes their private property, that experience. At a transcendental level, it becomes a private property. It is something that you experience yourself. That is, I think, the best choice is cinema, where you get images, where you get color, you get movements, you get the effective lens positions, changes in images, all those things. And today with the digital, you get unlimited. See, once I attended the festival at Oberhausen, exclusively for experimental cinema. I enjoyed that film festival. Many of the festivals I have gone, but the maximum enjoyment I received was the experimental film festival at Oberhausen. At that time, electronic devices were only coming into the market. Lots of good filmmakers with unlimited images, imagination, not bound by what is the physical structure of an object. Breaking that concept of physical structure and imbibing that structure with something absolutely greater. That means that physical structure is changed into a certain experience. Such a number of films I saw. And that festival, I think, must have helped a lot of people to use the technology, that is the cellular technology, as well as the electronic technology, and now digital technology, to get into this field of experience. Because all opportunities are hidden in that. Unlimited scope for a person to share that experience.